Welcome to Right Talk with Mike Lee. This evening, I'm going to again discuss one of my favorite topics, which is Planned Parenthood and abortion. And I'm to discuss this topic maybe too much, but I think it deserves a lot of discussion because I think it's very important to the African American community from a biblical perspective and just from a common sense perspective. And I'm not sure that we have developed the right view on now. To discuss this matter with me, I have a good friend of mine and acquaintance, Pastor Corey Tabor. We're kind of like partners in crime.
Yes, sir.
We're conservative brothers, and we're kind of few and far between. But we stumbled on each other, about a year or so ago?
It's probably been about 2 years now.
2 years? It's been that long? Boy, time to get away. But you're a pastor at, what's the name of your church?
Full Life Community Church.
Full Life? And it's been how long?
We started the church 6 years ago. We started a Bible study 8 years ago, and we officially launched on September 11th, 2011.
Now, for those people who don't know, who never met you before, I've met you before, but tell us a little bit about your background, Corey.
So I grew up in Abilene, 3.5, 4 hours northwest of here. Graduated from Abilene High School, moved to Austin to go to the University of Texas, hook 'em horns. And I got my degree in communication studies with an emphasis in human relations and a minor in business. Graduated, did college ministry for 5 years, and then went on staff at Greater Mount Zion, working with adult ministries, discipleship, and then planted our church in 2010.
You're not mad because I'm a pony, are you?
No, I'm not mad at all, man. I love all the Texas schools, yeah.
Okay. Now tonight, now Planned Parenthood is something that, and abortion is something, I think you and I discussed that whenever I first met you. It's something that you've worked in that area some.
Yeah, I work at a pregnancy resource.
Describe your experience?
Yeah, I work at an Austin Life Care Pregnancy Resource Center where we help men and women who are dealing with a pregnancy decision. So we have a number of women that come in who are abortion determined, and they're thinking, man, abortion is the only solution to my problem of being pregnant, and they don't understand the options that they have available. So our job is to make sure they know all the options available to them, whether it be parenting, placing for adoption, or if they consider an abortion, understanding all of the impacts that abortion would have on them, not only physically, but emotionally and psychologically as well, so they can make an informed decision. Often they'll go to a clinic like a Planned Parenthood, and they will tell them it's just a blob of cells. It hasn't even formed or developed, but we know as early as 4 weeks, the heart is beginning to develop, the brain functions at 6 weeks. All of the essential organs are formed at 8 weeks. And so in Texas, they can abort after 20 weeks, but even then, there's a lot of things that go along with that from an emotional and psychological perspective. So if a woman's had an abortion, we offer studies to help them recover from that. If they've had a miscarriage or been in sexual abuse situations, they can assist in that. But we just want to make sure they make an informed decision so that they're not making that decision in isolation without the support of others.
If you don't mind, Corey, I'd like to show some video clips relating to this subject, and then perhaps you and I could comment on these clips, because part of the things I want to do is try to educate and inform people as to what's going on, particularly with this issue.
Right.
Because to me, it is the one issue that is, I guess, most dear to me, because I look at survival as being the first law of nature, and when I look at what happens in terms of abortion statistic-wise, it's negatively impacted our numbers as far as the black community is concerned. And if political power is measured or gauged by numbers, what you want to do is pursue a strategy to increase numbers, not decrease numbers.
Right.
And I believe that we're having a net decrease. You're probably more intimately acquainted with that than even I. I think I met you through John Jewett, who's from Williamson County, didn't
I can't remember how
You gave a speech at West Williamson County, some deal like
I
that?
talked about racial reconciliation.
Because he told me about you.
Yeah, I did a speech on racial reconciliation, trying to help the party think about how do they connect with people of color. Yeah,
Okay.
and that became kind of a way for me to try to reach out.
Okay, I got a clip I'd like to show, and I guess it really indicates that the leading cause of death among black people is abortion, not murder, not black on black crime.
Right, not heart attacks or sugar diabetes or high blood pressure. It's abortion.
Can you show that? I think we can get that clip.
What would you say is now the #1 cause of death in the African American community?
Heart disease.
Oh, HIV/AIDS.
Diabetes, cancer, AIDS.
I'll say heart disease. AIDS.
From what I heard, it's probably AIDS, you know.
Probably heart disease.
I think heart disease.
HIV. Gang violence.
What if I told you the real answer was abortion?
Since 1973, legal abortion has killed more African Americans than AIDS, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and violent crime combined. Every week, more blacks die in American abortion clinics than were killed in the entire Vietnam War. And the largest chain of abortion clinics in the United States is operated by Planned Parenthood.
Now, what do you think of that, Corey? What's your reaction to that?
It's disappointing because one of the things we value most as a community is family. And it just feels like we have decided that money is more important than family. And people feel like they can't take care of the family if they don't have the money to take care of the family, but yet they are willing to eliminate people that could be legacy people. I mean, you never know. The cure to cancer could be in the grave now because we have aborted so many children from our community that could have been able to provide so many solutions to our societal problems.
Sometimes I think of things from the standpoint of being an English major. You were taught to ask the question of, you wonder what you're walling in or walling out. With respect to abortion, don't you wonder what?
Sitting on there with
One doesn't know who or what she is aborting, actually, or what that person may have been capable of. And I guess in a funny kind of way, I look at things this way. If that were an angel inside of a woman, you're preventing an angel from coming to earth. And who knows what the divine may have had planned for that angel, what that angel was supposed to do. When I look at it in that terms, it gets to be very serious.
I mean, you look at Eileen Reddick, who's featured in the Mile for 21 video. You know, she was sterilized at the age of 14, 15 years old after having been raped. And her child was born, and he became the CEO of 3 different companies. And she's thinking, man, at 21, she finds out she's sterilized. She's thinking, man, I could have produced so much more. I could have helped the world and made a difference. And I think so many people make a decision, a short-term solution for a long-term problem, you know.
Now, what really concerns me about abortion, particularly, is that every member of the Congressional Black Caucus supports Planned Parenthood. And they have 100% certain vote for Planned Parenthood. And this president, for all people may say about him, he does believe in life, that abortion is basically murder. That you're taking a human life.
Right.
And that's evil, and it's an evil practice.
Right.
And nowadays, I know that I read something about a report that they were being investigated by the Justice Department. And they've been about to get kicked out of Spain just about. This is something I read a couple weeks ago. About, I think the Spanish legislature said that the Planned Parenthood or the affiliated organization over there doesn't serve the public interest, which I think is a good development.
Right. Yeah.
And for those of us Americans who want to be more like Europe and all that, we haven't got to that part yet. Now, this president I think there have been 2 efforts to try to defund Planned Parenthood, but they haven't been successful yet. I anticipate that they'll continue to try to do so, and I wish they would.
Yeah, there's so much miscommunication about the way they get their funding. You know, people say, "Oh, it's only 3% of their services," but they make a birth control pill a service. So if you get birth control pills for 28 days a month or 21 days a month, that's 21 services. So the mindset is, if it wasn't such a big deal to their budget, why are they tripping about it being taken away from them financially? Because it's a major part of the way that they make their resources. You know, $500 an abortion, anywhere from $1,300 an abortion, is going to make a significant amount of money for them, especially considering the hundreds of thousands of abortions they perform every year.
Well, my concern is, from what I'm able to gather, it's disproportionately affecting the black community.
Yes.
Which means it's reducing our number.
Right.
And if you happen to be an African-American politician and you want black votes, why would you do anything to reduce the number of possible votes you can get?
And I think it's all based in finances. I think, you know, Planned Parenthood supports these candidates and they get reelected from the finances that are provided by Planned Parenthood, not realizing that the votes that they need are in the ground. The votes they need are being dismembered and being sold off for baby body parts.
Well, to me, it's like Planned Parenthood simply just buying them off.
Yes, totally.
And so, viewed that way, what the politician is doing is not for the community, it's for the politician.
Right, right. That's exactly it. It's just about getting reelected. And so, you know, you think about the transitions that even President Obama made in his time from 2008 to 2012, a lot of those decisions that he made were really around the support financially he would get from organizations that would support certain issues that he personally may not even believe in, but politically it was expeditious to be able to be involved in those things.
I got a clip by, if we can cue it up, from Martha 21 by Alveda King, which discusses the genocidal effect and impact of abortion.
Need to remember that over 60 years ago, a man who could today be called the father of modern-day eugenics proposed that population control clinics be concentrated in minority neighborhoods. And now today, the vast majority of Planned Parenthood clinics are located in our neighborhoods. Are we really so naive to believe that this is all a coincidence? We all know that drugs, alcohol, and tobacco are devastating, especially in the black community. We know that the big corporations target us with the ads and the marketing campaigns. And yet, we don't notice that Planned Parenthood is doing the very same thing. We need to pay attention to the fact that in the 1960s, when we as African Americans began to demand our civil rights, for the first time in American history, there began a widespread cry in our government for legalized abortion. Was that coincidence too? Or could it be that when we said we would no longer sit on the back of the bus, a place was being reserved for us down at the abortion clinic?
I think that given the impact of abortion and the negative impact it has on the community, and I guess it would be pure speculation as to what kind of impact it would have on the person who gets the abortion, their mental outlook.
Right.
To me, that in and of itself is reason enough to oppose it. But even despite its impact, and I want to ask you this question, I've been wondering about this. When I first arrived in Austin, I knew nothing. I knew no one. And there was a Dr. Alan Johnson, the late Dr. Alan Johnson, used to work at Houston-Tillotson. He's the one that told me at a meeting that Richard Franklin was having about the abortion clinic being right across the street from Houston-Tillotson. And it's right there on the corner of, is that 7th?
7th and Chicon.
7th and Chicon. and this is on 9th, 8th and 9th.
Right.
You went to UT. Is there a Planned Parenthood on UT's campus anywhere?
No, there's not. There are a number of people at UT that probably take advantage of Planned Parenthood, but even the Planned Parenthood on 7th Street doesn't do abortions, but they refer to the location in South Austin off of Ben White. And so, but they know if they position it in our communities, there's more of a likelihood. And I know many women that have been a part of my church in the past who have been taking advantage of those services in order to eliminate their children from the perspective of trying to make sure they can complete their education or make sure they can stay in their career, not realizing that they could do both. They don't have to make a choice to end the life of a loved one because they want to be able to pursue their goals. They can still accomplish their goals at the same time.
I understand there may be practical considerations that may be overwhelming at the moment.
Right.
But sometimes with the passage of time, when you look back, you think you could have done something a little differently.
Right, yeah.
Maybe avoided some impact to certain things.
I think that's what we see with a lot of women. They think, man, they think every year their child would have been born, oh man, my kid would be a year old. My kid would be 2 years old. So they deal with anniversary syndrome. They deal with depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress syndrome has been proven, according to the Woman's Right to Know book that's delivered by the Department of Health and Human Services. And what we see is that women and men are impacted by this. I have a friend whose girlfriend aborted his baby without, he didn't want to abort the baby, but he had no legal rights to his child because it was in her body. But if he were to harm her, he'd go down for assault on two people. So it's a double standard in our nation right now related to what abortion looks like.
Well, I know that President Trump has, in his speeches, he's kind of indicated like the same-sex marriage thing. That's like the cat's out of the bag, so forget that. But it seems like he's not opposed to perhaps review or reconsideration of abortion. And with this Supreme Court, especially with Gorsuch on there, there might be half a chance.
Yeah, I think the big thing is at this stage in the game, we got to make it safe, legal, and rare. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be something that when it does happen, it needs to be the safest procedure that can be done in the hospital. And then it needs to make sure that it's done in a legal way where children aren't being forced to have abortion by their parents, that children who are underage are not having abortions without their parents' permission. And then it needs to be rare. It needs to not be 8, 9, 10, 12 abortions at the time. I've read of people and heard of people who've had, in the teens.
So instead of abortion should not be used as a means of birth control.
Exactly. It should not be used as a means of birth control. It should be limited. And there's got to be some kind of way we can help minimize the impact it's having on women. I think so many people who are pro-choice don't understand the way it's impacting women. They say they're pro-women, but I see these women coming to our pregnancy center and they're devastated by the choice that they made for years often until they get through a process of being able to learn how they can heal. It is a challenging thing. And either they suppress it and make it seem as if it wasn't significant, or they deal with the reality of it on a daily basis.
Now, we mentioned it before, but this, what I think is an unholy relationship between black politicians and Planned Parenthood is something that is, Jesse flipped back in the 60s on it. First it was considered genocide. Then when Planned Parenthood would contribute to his effort to be president,
in the 80s,
it became a woman's right to choose. But I hesitate to say African American, the Kenyan American who became president, Barack Obama, it was one of his high priorities, and I think it's shown by this next clip, if we could get that up.
What would you do as president? Fix the economy, end the war, restore our schools?
Well, the first thing I'd do as president is sign the Freedom of Choice Act.
Really? Obama's top priority as president will be a law to reinstate partial birth abortion, eliminate parental notification, and force taxpayers to fund abortions?
On this fundamental issue, I will not yield, and Planned Parenthood will not yield.
Barack Obama, dangerous values. Family Research Council Action PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Brothers and sisters and many others supported Barack Obama. But, and I know we had the birthers and all of that, but I guess my main thing is, to me, to be pro-woman's right to choose is not really being pro-black.
Right. Yeah.
Or pro-family, or pro-life.
Pro-life, pro-family, pro-black.
It's like being pro-death.
And this is the thing. To be pro-choice means you give people a choice. The mindset is in the pro-choice community that the only choice is abortion. There is no choice for life. And so it's not really pro-choice. Like you say, it is pro-death. It's give people the opportunity to eliminate the child so that they can have a more convenient life. And in reality, there are so many resources out there, pregnancy centers, thousands of them around the country that can support women through their process of having their child, adoption agencies that are willing to support them in being able to carry their child to term and place their child for adoption, even with an open adoption option to see the child, to get to know the child, build a relationship with the child. There are too many alternatives available to have to choose this as the main option in our community.
Well, it seems to me that the overall atmosphere seems to be one of lack of information. Because...
Or misinformation.
Well, you hear the term partial birth abortion. It sounds very partial birth abortion. It doesn't sound harmful or anything like that. That doesn't sound like if you say, I've always said, it sure would be nice if they show it. They partially deliver the baby, crack open the skull, suck out the brains, and harvest the parts.
So that they can get them all together,
That's
it's crazy. Man. It's crazy. And we would never do it to an animal. If we did that to a cat, man, we go to jail. If we did it to a dog, we go to jail. But our human beings, our offspring.
Mike Vick went to jail for what, breeding dogs?
Yeah, for fighting dogs.
Fighting dogs?
Yes. But he could abort as many babies as he wanted to legally in the United States. And in Pennsylvania, in the third trimester.
That makes no sense.
Makes absolutely no sense. It's a double standard. And it's not based upon value. I mean, it's based upon money.
Well, what's scary to me is a person such as Barack Obama, who became president of the United States, he said it's the first thing he would do, not the second, the first.
Yes. And, you know, I struggle to think that if Sasha or Malia came home and said, I want to have an abortion, that he would be like, oh, yeah, kill my grandbaby. I think him and his wife would try to figure out how to help that child live. I think it became politically expedient to be pro-choice. I think he felt like he needed to give people an opportunity to choose their own choice. But personally, I don't know that he agrees with that. But it's concerning because his policies and the policies of the party have really continued to progress the elimination of African Americans in our community.
That's what concerns me most is our numbers. Now they had the special election in Alabama. They said the African Americans came out in record numbers. They exceeded the turnout than it was in 2010 and 2012. And that voting element is the one that put the Democrat over. But then you do that, and then that person turns around and supports eliminating. To me, that's like crazy.
It's countercultural, man. It makes absolutely no sense. We would never say, let's go eliminate, let's go shoot 300,000 black babies. Let's go do it. Let's just shoot them all. If that happens in a foreign country, in Africa, we are sending the UN to try to deal with that issue because that is genocide. But when we do it in the womb of an African American woman, from the seed of an African American man, it's acceptable because we believe a woman has a right to choose.
I think that most of what happens, it happens because people just don't have the information that they need or should have.
Right.
So as to be able to make an informed decision.
Yes.
Now there's a clip by Ben Shapiro that I'd like to show next. It's about 4 or 5 minutes long. And I think it captures in essence what Planned Parenthood is all about. And I'd like to take a look at that now, see what you got to say about that.
If you're like 7 in 10 Americans, you probably haven't heard anything at all about Planned Parenthood killing unborn babies and then selling their body parts to the highest bidder. You've probably heard about a random dentist killing a magic lion out in Zimbabwe. You've probably heard about Miley Cyrus's armpit hair, but the media don't want you to know that your tax dollars are funding the mass murder and organ harvesting of actual children in the womb. I'm Ben Shapiro, and this is Hardwired. So, why are the media covering up the brutality of Planned Parenthood? Because it might make you uncomfortable. Worse, it might make Democrats uncomfortable because Democrats love Planned Parenthood. The Democratic Party platform stands for the ability of a woman to crush her baby's head 1 minute before birth, and they want you to pay for it. It's actually in their platform. Quote, Democratic Party strongly and unequivocally supports Roe v. Wade and a woman's right to make decisions regarding her pregnancy, including a safe and legal abortion, regardless of ability to pay. President Obama, as a state senator in Illinois, he actually called for a fully formed living baby to be killed after birth. He said such a child was merely a fetus outside of the mother's womb. That's how Democrats think. We have it on gruesome tape. Here's a top Planned Parenthood doctor talking about how to use less crunchy techniques to kill babies so that their organs can be more easily sold.
How he feels about using a less crunchy technique to get more whole specimens.
And here's another top Planned Parenthood doctor talking about the ease with which baby intestines can be harvested and eyeballs can be extracted.
These orbits are good too, and at this stage you start to get the retinal pigment epithelium, which is in the back, which is, you've collected that before.
So all the orbits are so easy.
It's just delightful. A third top Planned Parenthood doctor negotiated over baby body part prices while standing over a tray of dissected children.
I think the per item thing works a little better just because we can see how much we can get out of it.
Now, naturally, Hillary Clinton thinks the people who do this are just wonderful.
I'm proud to stand with Planned Parenthood.
But when Hillary Clinton is shown video of Planned Parenthood doctors talking about selling organs, even she pretends to find it, quote, disturbing. People who claim they're disturbed by the sale of baby organs, but are totally fine with the crushing of their heads, are moral idiots. It's like saying you're disturbed by the whipping of American slaves, but not by anyone holding them as slaves in the first place. Here's the truth. Abortion ends a human life. The science is settled. By 3 weeks after sperm meets egg, the baby's brain, spinal cord, heart, and other organs begin forming. That's about the time when most women notice they're pregnant in the first place. By week 4, we've got early facial features. By week 7, the baby has toes. By week 9, the baby is developing external genitalia. By week 10, the baby has started growing fingernails. And that's all in the first trimester. That's the least controversial abortion period. But we treat these innocent human lives as junk for the garbage disposal. During the first 3 months of pregnancy, doctors plunge a tube with an edged tip into the womb. They then use the suction power of the tube to literally tear apart the child while it's alive, and then suck the pieces out of the mother's womb. This is called suction aspiration. Unpleasant? Try dilation and curettage. In this version of abortion, doctors use a curette, which chops up the baby inside the womb and then scrapes it right out. As the baby grows, the methods of abortion get uglier and uglier. There's dilation and evacuation, in which doctors use a forceps to crush the baby, including its brain and spine. The pieces are then removed. And as a last resort, doctors use partial birth abortion. Democrats love partial birth abortion. This is a procedure in which doctors use an ultrasound. They find a baby's legs with the forceps. They pull it into the birth canal. They deliver the entire baby except for the head. And then they stab the baby in the skull with the scissors, insert a suction tube into the skull, and suck out the brains. This is also the preferred method for ensuring that the internal organs are best preserved, so Planned Parenthood can hawk them to Big Pharma. Taken in total, these various forms of abortion and others are used to murder approximately 3,000 babies every single day in America. That's over 1 million babies a year. That's 55 million children since Roe v. Wade. The media want to keep us blind to these facts, or perhaps we want to blind ourselves. But by blinding ourselves to murder, we become complicit in it.
Now, when I first saw that clip, it disturbed me very much because I had read about these various procedures, but I had not seen them in a graphic sense. How do you respond to that, Corey?
It's devastating. I think about my little girl who's now 3, almost 4 years old, and when she was born, to have that happen to her would have been devastating. Even me and my wife lost a child at 10 weeks old, and the grief that we felt in the midst of that process. To think about a child who has no choice but to be subjected to this by its parents, it's completely anti-human. It's not what we as people do. We don't hurt our own. And to see the strategicness of the decision to preserve parts of the body in order to sell it as compared to trying to preserve the life, it's just devastating.
To me, it is as cold as it comes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have children. I have 4 children.
Mm-hmm.
And I particularly remember the last 2 because the first 2 were unwanted. They weren't aborted.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember the last 2. I remember when they were in the womb. I remember seeing them move inside their mother's stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And even recently, I have a friend who's a nurse in Springfield, Ohio, and we were talking about abortion on Facebook, where I started a lot of fusses and arguments. And she had, a couple of months ago, she had said, she was talking about a woman's right to choose, and it's only a fetus, sounding like Obama. And then about a month ago, she was talking about her daughter was pregnant, and she felt her grandbaby in her daughter's stomach. And I thought to myself, she doesn't know what she said 2 months ago. She's not making the connection. And for some reason, it may be psychological, that she had to disconnect in order to have that opinion that she had 3 months ago.
Right. I mean, I know in our pregnancy center, one of the things we see is that when women can see a live sonogram, they start to realize the value of the life. And they're like, man, I can't do this, you know? So we gotta, that's why the sonogram bill is so important, that people are required to have a sonogram 24 hours prior to the abortion. They're required to see the Woman's Right to Know booklet 24 hours prior. So they at least know what's happening, because when you see that fetus moving and really alive at the weeks that are even early on, 6, 7, 8 weeks, it has to make you think more consistently about, is this something I really want to do? And is it worth it to make this decision? It's a long-term decision for a short-term challenge.
Now something is going on, because a couple of days ago I remember reading that this administration had issued some kind of directive to some federal organizations, departments, not to use the word fetus, transgender. It's a whole bunch of them.
I saw that, yes.
And so something is amiss. I'm not quite sure what.
Yeah, it seems like there's a desire to dehumanize people who, one, are in the womb, two, who are outside of the scope of the normality of our nation. And that's designed to desensitize the country to these individuals, particularly these children, because if we can, like, I mean, in our pregnancy center, I directed the sex ed program for 5 years, 4.5 years, and we use the term fetus because we were trying to claim the word back. Fetus is a Latin word for young one or offspring. That's literally what it is. And so, yes, it's a fetus in the womb, it's a baby when it's born, but either way it goes, it's life. There's a heart that's beating and a brain that's functioning. So if I was laying on a table in the hospital, my heart was beating, my brain was functioning, they consider me alive. Now, if my heart is beating and my brain's not functioning, I'm brain dead, but I'm still alive. And so when you have a fetus at 4 weeks who has a brain and a heart, that's alive. And so the science, like they said in the video, is definitely on the side of the life, but the politics is not always on the side of the life, because the politics are based around money.
To me, from the legal standpoint, the question would be, are there any rights that the fetus has?
Right.
And is there a state interest in protecting the fetus?
Right.
To me, that's what the real question should be.
And I think often the state thinks about, particularly the federal government, thinks about what's the cost to the state and to the country to have a child that's born, quote unquote, out of wedlock, or a child that's born without a father. Yeah, it's complicated, but everybody that is pro-choice is alive. Somebody chose to let them live. And so you can't take away a child's choice because they're going to be born in a bad situation. Think about all the people that are born in challenging situations that made life better for us. How you're born into the world doesn't determine what you experience in the world. It's up to you.
Well, Corey, you know, oftentimes I think about all this craziness that's going on. Now, my wife and I talk quite often about how we grew up. Now, where we grew up, they had a lot of large families. Say, for example, in my mom's house, my mom and dad's house, a full-size bed, 3 people slept in it. A twin bed, somebody slept at the bottom, somebody slept at the top. Your foot was in somebody's face and somebody's foot was in your face. That's how it is. But we have all these notions as to how families are supposed to operate that really didn't apply in my neighborhood. And to me, these kinds of considerations may be in the back of someone's mind when they're thinking about this craziness. Because to me, abortion is just straight out murder.
You know,
because it's a life in there.
There is. Scientifically, we know that to be true. Morally, we know that to be true. And we see that from a legal perspective, that if I eliminate the life of a woman who's pregnant, there's 2 murders involved. But when she chooses to eliminate the life inside of her body, it's legal. And I think the reason a lot of this is happening, as I stated, because of the desensitization of the fetus. They don't want to create humanity and see the reality that these are human beings.
But it's sad that we've so-called evolved, advanced to that in that way. It's like we've advanced to barbarism. That's barbaric.
Yeah, and you know, you think about it, when you were born, when my father was born, children were considered to be an asset because often people were living in an agrarian culture where their children could work the land. And then people became more focused on earning money and not wanting to spend the money for daycare, for diapers, for you know, formula and those type of things. My mom was the youngest of 11, my dad was the oldest of 9. And what they did was, you know, my mom being the youngest of 11, her family, her brothers who were older, who had already gone to the military, took her in as a high school student and let her stay with them. There was a communal mindset. There was a mindset, we're going to take care of each other and we're going to build our community. And
we worked as a unit.
Yes, exactly. We worked as a union, which you see much more in the African culture than you do in the American culture. And I feel like we've been assimilated, so to speak, to the American culture to think that limited children is our
but
life.
Picking up on that point, Corey, I noticed I serve on, one of the things I do is in connection with my outreach activity is serve on the board of directors for the Texas Asian Republican Assembly. Now, in the Asian community, which is economically more prosperous than any other community here in Austin, and maybe in the nation, but they still embrace very much family values and education and hard work. And I'm thinking and hoping that perhaps if that happens in the African American community, that we can begin to improve. At least, hopefully, stop the bleeding.
Right. I mean, it's so much a part of our culture. I think so much of our history is taken out of specifically high school resources where students don't know about who we are as a people. Once you discover the ways that we have contributed not only to this land in America, but prior to coming here, you understand that intelligence, ingenuity, creativity are natural parts of our culture. And every time we abort a child that is African American, or any child in particular, but African American in particular, we are eliminating that creativity, that legacy, that ingenuity that could be producing the next great movie.
We don't know. You don't know.
The next cure to cancer or sugar diabetes. The things that have plagued our communities, the cure could be in the ground.
Well, I guess to me the most cold aspect about all of this business about abortion, Planned Parenthood, is involved in the selling of body parts. And what I guess what disturbs me about it is if we know that they're disproportionately aborting black children and selling those body parts, it's like you're killing black children to keep some other person alive.
Right, to provide for their family.
That's crazy.
It's straight up barbarianism. It's slavery all over again. It's like we can't be free from a legal perspective. We just eliminate them legally.
I got a clip on about them selling body parts. It's about 4 or 5 minutes long. I'd like for you to take a look at that.
Okay.
And react to that.
So I say, okay, what are you looking to supply today? We've been very good at getting heart, lung, liver.
Dr. Deborah Nucatola, Planned Parenthood's Director of Medical Services. An abortion provider discussing how to collect body parts from aborted fetuses over lunch at a California restaurant.
So I'm not going to crush that part. I'm going to basically crush below, I'm going to crush above, and I'm going to see if I can get it intact.
So what ethicists said to me is, look, if they were giving women abortions and they changed their technique, they changed their practices in order to get the best quality tissue after the abortion, that's problematic.
For example, so I had 8 cases yesterday. And I knew exactly what we needed, and I kind of looked at the list, and I said, all right, this 17-weeker has 8 pounds.
I just want to show the audience, this is what a 17-weeker looks like. This is not a pro-choice argument right now, or a pro-life argument right now, but this is a 17-weeker. And the gruesomeness of her attitude is what has resonated with people in watching this.
I knew which were the cases that were probably more likely to yield what we needed, and I made my decisions according to that too. So it's worth having a huddle at the beginning of the day, and that's what I do.
You know, in negotiations, the person who throws out the figure first is at a loss, right? So.
And if they can do a little better than break even and do so in a way that, you know, seems reasonable, they're happy to do it.
The two big charges are you profit and you commingle. Can you prove that those are untrue? And if not, why wasn't it done at the hearing yesterday?
What did that reimbursement go towards?
I mean, it's, you know, it's very clear what it is. It's getting samples.
Brain, kidney, thymus, liver, spleen, femur, bone marrow.
$75 a specimen.
How callous does one have to be to rob a baby of life and then charge others for the pieces of the corpse? This is beyond disturbing.
I want a Lamborghini. I said I want a Lamborghini.
I think a per item thing works a little better just because we can see how much we can get out of it.
To the providers like Dr. Amna Dermish.
I always try and keep the trunk intact just by function of always trying to aim for the spine to bring it down.
When you watch some of those doctors talking so cavalierly about what obviously is human life, I think it's disgraceful.
The Planned Parenthood research director in Texas talking about extracting intact fetus cadavers and body parts from abortions interspersed with talk about budgets and money.
When we're coming in and making it beneficial to you financially, you can frame it so that that's, yes, okay. If we alter our process and we are able to obtain intact fetal cadavers, it's all just a matter of line items.
State health investigators have served subpoenas for records at several Planned Parenthood offices in Texas.
Texas does have hard evidence showing Medicaid fraud as well as violations of federal and state law concerning abortion procedures.
Fox has exclusively obtained letters and documentation outlining the contractual arrangement between STEM Express, a top fetal tissue procurement company, and several abortion clinics, including 2 Planned Parenthood affiliates.
I mean, Planned Parenthood has volume.
Right.
You know, because they're a volume institution.
Right.
Another 50 livers a week.
A per tissue, price per tissue payment. That informs me that we're talking about the sale of a part and not some reasonable cost.
We have independent colleagues who generate a fair amount of income doing this.
Panel Chair Marsha Blackburn alleges the contract shows STEM Express was allowed to illegally review patients' most private medical and personal information in order to match them up with the daily orders STEM Express had for specific fetal organs and body parts.
The technician then goes to the woman, befriends her, and coerces her to give consent by lying to her, and this is a Planned Parenthood order consent form.
I agree. That's an inappropriate statement and should not have been made on that form. I don't know who wrote it. That would not have made it past my IRB either.
I'm grateful to the entire Planned Parenthood family.
I said I want a Lamborghini.
I'm gonna basically crush below, I'm gonna crush above, and I'm gonna see if I can get it intact.
It's all just a matter of line items.
Corey, honestly, when I see a clip like that and I hear him talking like that, I'm thinking about the person who supposedly is the founder of the Democratic Party, Thomas Jefferson, that well-known slave owner, and he said his statement was, I think it was Thomas Jefferson said, that money, not morality, is the principal commerce of civilized nations. And to me, if he founded the Democratic Party, what they're saying in this clip is perfectly consistent with that. It's about money, nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in the church, we read scripture. Matthew chapter 6 says you can't serve both God and money. And I feel like to serve God would be to say, I'm going to save this baby's life, whatever it takes. If it's a placing for adoption or choosing to raise a child myself, or let my mom or grandmother, somebody raise it, to choose to eliminate it, it's typically a financial decision. It's not really based upon them not wanting the child. It's based upon them thinking, I can't provide for a child. And that's a limited view of the experience, the education, the opportunities that these individuals have, and the resources that are available in our state through our women's health program.
Now, my parents were sharecroppers from Mississippi. And I had 7 brothers. There were 8. I had 8 boys and 3. I had 11 children. And I had a sister, two sisters who had kids, who were my nephews, and they grew up with us. And so there was a sense in the community back then, when I was growing up in the mid-50s, that, you know, one more person in the house wasn't really going to make that big a difference. Right. It's kind of like you were automatic babysitters. You know, people just drop kids at your house. You take care of them. That's what you did. Right. And if you spent the night, you slept on the floor, you slept on the couch, you slept wherever you could sleep sometimes. That's how it is. But this thing about comfort and how things are supposed, having in mind how things are supposed to be or what's best. I think my wife at one point when she went through a personal situation, she was trying to get an apartment, but she couldn't get an apartment because she had two kids, one boy, one girl, and she was told they couldn't sleep in the same room. You know, but that's that kind of thinking. And we sleep three to a bed, and you brother and sister can't sleep in the same room.
Yeah.
What's wrong? I mean, what's wrong with you? But you know, I guess my thing is, I look at the impact that this has on the black community and the black family. Right. And if you look at it in political terms, over the long haul, the black vote. Right. Because every black baby that's aborted, that's a potential vote 18 years from now. Right. And to me, to engage in that practice disproportionately, you're cutting down your numbers not now, but later. But they're being cut down. Right. And so between abortion, incarceration, and all the other things, we're in a situation where our numbers are negatively being impacted, while every other demographic is expanding.
Yes. They're expanding not only by numbers, but financially, you know, because they're supporting each other's businesses. You see the Latino community, they'll go to their own restaurants, they go to their own car dealerships, they believe in supporting each other's business. Same thing with the Asian American community, but our community, for some reason, we see something negative when we talk about a black-owned business, and we don't feel the need to support it as much or that we get the same quality or value. Now, granted, some people are not doing as well as others could, but we give everybody else a second chance. Why wouldn't we give our own community a second chance?
So we need a renaissance of sorts.
Yes.
And I would think and hope that reevaluating how we approach the issue of abortion would be one of the things that we might begin to consider. I got one last clip I want to see about the impact of abortion with respect to blacks, what happens to blacks when they ask a question about it. If we had that clip about Planned Parenthood and where they routed.
For the last couple of months, we've been seeing these videos released on Planned Parenthood where they are performing these abortions and selling the baby parts for profit. At Bond, we are rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. Planned Parenthood is killing off the men even before they have a chance to develop. They're destroying families even before they have a chance to live. So we decided we're going to do something about it. This past Saturday, we had our first rally in front of Planned Parenthood in the downtown South Central LA area. My PR guy says to me, "Hey, Jesse, why don't you go in and talk to the manager, introduce yourself, talk to them." I said, "Oh, that's a good idea." So I, along with my camera guy, went into the lobby of the abortion clinic. Sir, may you leave, please? All right, I just need to talk to the manager or somebody. I said, I'd like to just talk to the manager to find out why they're killing these children. Do they feel any guilt about killing black babies? And at this point, when we turned around and we're talking to the young girl, one Hispanic girl was there and she attacked my camera guy and tried to take the camera away from him. I mean, just hell going on at this point. The other girls start hiding their faces, and we just left. We finally left, and then later I saw the security guard outside on the sidewalk, and we had a nice little talk, and I told him, we're sorry, we didn't mean to do it. We're just trying to get the information out. We want to help, and we will be back. We are committed to saving as many unborn lives as possible. We want Congress to defund Planned Parenthood. If you want to get involved, this is a perfect issue to deal with, especially if you live in the Los Angeles area. We are here in Los Angeles, and we're asking you to come and join us to fight this battle to save the lives of the unborn. You should be active. You have no reason now not to do it. Every child deserves a chance to live, and they're not getting that right now. And that's why we're doing this. So come on down and join us and get involved with this issue.
I said earlier that I actually bet money on this president when he's coming down the escalator. I won. Still hadn't collected yet. But I admire and respect and like the president's position on Planned Parenthood. He's trying to get it defunded. You heard him speak on the clip earlier. He's very clear about where his head is on that.
Right.
But my thing is, most of the people, my guess would be most of the people in the black community are so caught up with hatred and vitriol about the word Trump or the word Republican that they don't even hear it.
That's true. I mean, it's an opposition-minded political standard now with the polarization of media. So we're dealing with what we call the big sort. I mean, you got most of the people in the middle 80, but the 10s on the end make the noise. And that's how people respond, to what decisions they're going to make, particularly politically, because they're just trying to be expedient and get reelected.
Well, it seems to me that we really need real leaders.
Yes.
To really take positions that are consistent with what's best for the community, not what's best for themselves.
Right. Yeah, and I think the more we get that information out, the more people are going to be able to make a decision and say, hey, I'm informed now, and I know I don't want to make this choice. As compared to, like you said, making it undercover and making it at the last minute, making it quickly, and not really having the support that's needed.
What do you think? What's your idea about how we can approach this thing in a systematic way to try to get them to change their mindset?
I mean, I definitely think we need to start with young people. We can start with college students, high school students who have a heart to see this issue made significant as they continue to vote. As we stated before, they're going to be able to make a difference. They see it more clearly than women in their 20s and 30s because many of them have had abortions. And then it's about time to help the church stand up and be able to support them in the process of trying to recover and offer more groups.
I have always wondered, and I've often wondered, how is it that the black community that I know is mostly pretty conservative. They go to church on Sunday, they forget it on Monday. but then it's something that happens on that second Tuesday in November that all the Sundays that cancels out all the Sundays in the world.
It's true.
And I just wonder what it is. I wish I could push something and something go click and suddenly wake up. But I don't know that the mindset. The mainstream media is so dominated by negativity.
Yes.
And not informing the community, particularly the African American community, of what is in its best interest, or deciding what is in its best interest for it and telling it what to do.
And that's where we as families got to do what we do, but it's challenging. I mean, even as political leaders and pastoral leaders in our community, there's a lot to work to do to try to get people to understand this issue, but you're right, information is going to be the first step, and then making it personal for them. This is not just a blob of cells, it's a human being. I want to thank you for coming on the show. Glad you could show up, bro. Thank you, man. I'm so glad I could be here, and let's do it again.
It's a pleasure of mine. Well, we're going to do some other further shows.